I wonder if they're trying to like fight up against the old the platform and stuff. Wonder if ZB's going, like when Newsmax and that came out in America, Fox News all of a sudden took a hard right turn because they wanted to make sure that these fringe element groups that Trump was giving praise to, One American News and Newsmax, they kind of went further right in some of their programming to try and keep those people in. I just for the first time, I thought, I wonder if that's what ZB's done in any way, shape, form whatsoever. I said it earlier, and if you're just joining us now, I'll just recap very briefly. I've often been of the opinion, not that, let's take my slippers off, not that media groups, newspapers, radio stations, etc., television stations can't have a political bias, but that more often than not, you see it within the host, not necessarily the organisation. You see it in the organisation with hiring practices. So, for example, Fox News, which is the extreme example of it, goes, the hosts from Fox News go, I've never been told to say anything or not say anything on air, ever. That may be true, but then what their employment situation is they employ people who they know are going to say certain things on air. So in other words, management don't need to tell them to say or not say things because they only employ people that will say or not say certain things. So it's kind of a coverall. So what's happened this week is that there was a piece on Newstalk ZB by Heather du Plessis-Allan talking about Kāinga Ora and a housing situation in New Plymouth. I'm going to bring up a story not about that, but about a response to it by Minister Michael Wood, and then we'll have a look at the origins of this, or as Donald Trump says, the oranges of this. Minister Michael Wood lashes out at NZME talkback station use of inorganic collection day photo on anti-state housing piece. Minister Michael Wood has lashed out at NZME's talkback station's use of an inorganic collection day photo, which you can see here. Right, that was the photo that was used. Inorganic collection day photo as the main image on a story about the new Kāinga Ora development being built in New Plymouth. Newstalk ZB host Heather du Plessis-Allan shared a piece on air and online about the new development titled, I don't think they are being judgmental. I think they're being realistic. In du Plessis-Allan's piece, she said locals, quote, have very good reason to oppose it and should continue to oppose it and should definitely insist that it's not in my backyard. Goes on to say, anyone who supports Kāinga Ora / Housing New Zealand development in their neighbourhood at the moment is being foolish and naive as long as Kāinga Ora / Housing New Zealand continues to run its no evictions policy. But it was the image attached to the article, which we can see up here again if you want to have a look at it. It was the image attached to the article that Minister Wood had an issue with, as it showed a street of state houses along with piles of rubbish on the front lawn. The photo was actually from Getty and depicted an inorganic collection day in Mount Roskill in 2011. Let's bring up the tweets that Minister Michael Wood said. He said by saying, with respect, the only trash here is the crude stereotyping of state housing communities. I recognise this image. It's a street I know well in the middle of Mount Roskill, so nowhere near New Plymouth. Proud, decent people who now have an image of inorganic collection day being used to create an impression that they are lazy, messy, and antisocial. Of course, genuinely bad behaviour needs to be managed by the landlord, but this sort of inaccurate scaremongering is just about stirring nasty class politics and cliques. We'll keep building the houses our families need. Now, just to wrap this all up, George, before you jump in, that was the image that was used, and I believe it was Monday evening or Tuesday morning. Going to that same story now, it's been changed. So I guess, well done for changing it. I'm not sure, but well done for changing it. But the idea that there was a commentary which I guess Stuff and Minister Wood is saying is anti-state housing, and then you use what looks like a dirty, filthy, photo of a house covered in rubbish to support that. The reason I've commented on this is I think that when I say it's okay, I understand that a host on a radio station may have an opinion, but my big concern was a bit like Minister Wood, when you then have whoever is responsible for posting this and putting it out in print, not just supports that image, but magnifies it by using an inaccurate and misleading photo. That to me speaks more about the whole workplace not the host. And if we have workplaces that do this, if we have bias within the whole media organization, or misinformation, or in this case, it is actually disinformation, then that's a massive concern for being able to trust a media outlet. George.
Yeah, it's a perfect example. I almost feel like it should be used in Media Studies 101. It's a perfect example of how even in this story isn't the most simplest, but in these simple, straightforward stories about money's going here or whatever it is, the image and how it's anchored, how the news presenter narrates, tells a story, tells an implicit story that has these sort of ideological underpinnings. The average viewer thinks state housing and they think this. Now, that could be from biases throughout their life, but it's also reinforced by the 6 p.m. news that they see every night through images like this. There's a constant feedback loop. The ideology is constantly maintaining itself, and this is exactly how it does that. So I couldn't have thought of a better example of this than that. Did you want me to bring up the other one, or are we going to leave that?
No, let's leave that. Let's do that, because I think we can delve a bit further into this. Because I want to add one more thing to this. We hear so often about play the ball, not the person, or whatever that saying is, about we should speak to the issue, not attack the person. The report, or the opinion piece by du Plessis-Allan, goes on to say, a week ago, the Herald printed a story about yet another neighbour terrorised by the state house tenants, this time in Rotorua. The family slept in the lounge together because they're terrified of the neighbour who has repeatedly threatened to murder them and burn down their house and rape another woman on the street. They've fought with Kāinga Ora for a year to take action. Nothing. This is on Kāinga Ora, Housing New Zealand, and the minister who has presumably directed it to run the no evictions policy. Couple of things, right? This is a crime. Threatening to murder someone and burn down someone's house and rape you is a crime. So I actually question the story, because it's actually, you don't necessarily need Kāinga Ora involved to phone 111, someone is threatening to murder me. But what speaks to me and makes me most frustrated about media in New Zealand is this is a story. Even if it was 5 stories, even if it was 10 stories about terrible neighbours, what about the 10,000 other stories that aren't there? So if this is an issue to do with Housing New Zealand and Kāinga Ora not dealing with a handful, my word, it's not in the article, but certainly a minority of difficult tenants, then we should be talking about that. But what this piece does, what the photo attached to it does, it attacks all state housing tenants, because it's saying they're all as bad as each other. You can't trust one moving next to you. They will be terrible. They will do these things to you. They will threaten to kill you. So that's playing the person, not the issue. I'm not saying Kāinga Ora and Housing New Zealand has it all together, but what I am saying is this kind of bullshit rhetoric is basically painting a picture, a right-wing trope, that beneficiaries are bad and you don't want them anywhere near you. Because there's very little nuance in this piece. It's all about, if you have these people living next to you, if you're okay with it, then you're an idiot. Because what they're saying is because they're going to be trouble for you no matter what. And it's disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, some of the imagery, as we've looked at, it can be quite implicit. But, looking at some of the, like this New Zealand Herald article from Lane Nichols, which, by the way, isn't listed as an opinion piece, starts off with painting this, pretty horrendous picture of like a hell for homeowners and renters that live next to state housing, failed marriages, deteriorating mental health, terrifying threats of violence and death. These are the harrowing stories from innocent Kiwis whose lives are being destroyed by nightmare state house neighbours. Example
there is also such an undertone of colour in this as well. You hear this a lot in America about, Americans who have been here for generations, i.e. white. And I know that maybe it's a bit different in New Zealand. We don't have the same history, but, what you just read there makes it sound a little bit to me like the brownies next door are threatening and harassing the whiteys. And I know that might not be the case. I know that everyone might be Caucasian, or everyone might be, have melanin in their skin. I don't know. But there is certainly an undertone of that, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's, I think, always in New Zealand, especially in terms of the stories told in the news media, definitely always a racial element underlining it all.
And look, it's a generational, if not multi-generational issue. But rather than going, oh, get those people away from us because they've got mental health and violence issues, why don't we start the conversation around why do they have mental health and violence issues? And if we address that, then everyone's better off, including the people who might have mental health issues, which more often than not are just as much of a victim in a situation, in a cycle of whatever, than the so-called victims who that they're offending against. It's like, I'm not trying to do this to be soft and say there's no problems here. I'm trying to go, painting all people who need a Housing New Zealand house as not being worthy to live beside is disgusting. And I mean, it says it. I'll read it again, I have belabored the point, but not to belabor the point. She says, anyone who supports a Kaingaronga housing development in their neighbourhood at this moment is being foolish and naive. So you're an idiot. You're an idiot if you want these people to live next to you. You're an idiot. Because this organisation has a bad policy about no evictions, fine, but that means you are going to have trouble. So anybody who supports this, you're going to have trouble. It's just revolting. I don't even know. It makes me want to go upstairs and have a shower. It's just dirty. I hate it. Ugh. Anyway.
Yeah, especially when it's we can sort of maybe on a case by case basis criticize the policy, but fuck,
sure.
we kicking people out of their homes. That is the first step for these people, right? That's what they think should be done with a lot of issues. Right wing sort of law and order freaks will often go straight to the eviction option, right? That's going to somehow solve something. I mean, really, at the heart of it, they just want to hurt people. But
I've literally had this conversation as a host on Newstalk ZB when this exact commentary came up about a different time and a different issue. And I said, okay, so let's evict the mum with 6 kids, right? Because she's got gang members coming to her house. Right, let's evict her. Then what? Fuck, I don't care. Well, you can't not care. What are you going to do next? What do you mean? I was like, well, what are you going to do? What do we as society now do with this mum with 6 kids who has no longer got a state house? Because you know what might happen is they might move into the house next door to you. Or maybe they don't have a house, so they move into a car and they park it at the end of your driveway. Now, wouldn't it be better to address the issue and figure this out and try and help them rather than be so punitive towards them and then think that's going to solve the problem? Because there's always a and then what question to be asked here. And then what are you going to do? And then what happens to these kids who now have lost their house? That'll affect every aspect of their life, schooling, health, all sorts of stuff. Then what? Fuck them. Get rid of them.